Hey guys, I'm Justin with Legato Financial Group. Our firm is passionate about helping educate consumers, which is why we're powering the Gaining Interest podcast. The podcast of quick conversations with industry experts on topics that you want to know about, from sports to dining to healthcare and automotive, and really everything in between. It's hosted by one of the greatest local personalities that I've met, that's John Ramsey.
I'll tell you why I love this podcast, because it's all about community. We used to call it water cooler talk, and that no longer exists. But if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us. We encourage you to tell your friends. As Justin mentioned, we're going to talk about everything under the sun. We will be gaining interest, and we appreciate you watching. Baseball has been part of American life since the late 1700s, and that's probably why they call it America's pastime. It has been part of this man's life, my guest, Greg Galiette, for close to 40 years. It's been his focus. He is the president of the Louisville Bats, and we welcome him in. Greg, thank you for spending time with us.
It's great to be here. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Before I get into your personal history with baseball, and it is extensive, let's talk a little bit about Louisville's relationship with the Bats. So River Bats, we go back to Colonels. We talk about that. There's been some evolvement here, but Louisville loves minor league baseball.
They do, and what a lot of people don't realize is Louisville had one of the original franchises in the National League. The Cincinnati Reds were created in the late 1860s, as was the Louisville franchise. And a lot of those teams back then were all located along the riversides, going from New York down through Ohio. And unfortunately, the team in here in Louisville didn't last that long. They basically disbanded at the turn of the century, kind of reformed from what I've been told and the research I've looked into in Pittsburgh, and basically become the Pittsburgh Pirates. But so Louisville then bowed out of the National League at that time, and there's even a story that goes around that the National League was created at a bar hotel that was located at the current site of the Ali Center. And there was a meeting there of all the presidents of the teams of the National League, and that's supposedly where it might have been created. So some great folklore history there of professional baseball. But you're right, baseball here in Louisville has a long, storied history, particularly on the minor league side. I grew up as a kid going to the old Louisville Colonel games at that time, which was Fairgrounds Stadium, later became known as Cardinal Stadium. And I had some interesting memories as a child going to those games because, one, they weren't heavily attended. So if there was a foul ball hit down the left field line, myself as a child, I didn't have to really run too far to get a ball. I just walked to the ball. And number two, on the weekends, particularly on Fridays and Saturday nights, you couldn't hear the PA announcer for the stadium because of the stock car racing and the school bus races that were going on next door over on Crittenden Drive at the Motor Speedway. So some interesting memories as a child. At that time, we were a Red Sox affiliate. So I kind of grew up as a kid being a Boston Red Sox fan. I was a big Carl Yastrzemski fan. And then baseball left in 1972 when basically they got into dispute with the University of Louisville football team at the time, coached by Lee Corso. And Coach Corso and the university wanted to expand Fairgrounds Stadium from its 19,000 seats to 38,000 by basically building this large bleacher area in right field, basically along one entire sideline that had retractable seats. And the Colonels wanted no part of it. And they finally could not reach any kind of agreement, so the Colonels basically just packed up their bags and left and went to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and had been there for years and years until they just recently moved to Worcester when they built a new ballpark up there. But baseball was gone for 10 years, from 72 to 82, when then A. Ray Smith, the owner-operator of the Springfield Redbirds, was convinced by Dan Ulmer to bring minor league baseball back to Louisville in 1982. And they came and played in a refurbished Cardinal Stadium, and with those retractable seats, which then became the largest minor league ballpark in America, which sat, for baseball, we sat almost 36,000 people. And in 82, 83, 84, on many a night, we had 20 to 30,000 plus fans in the ballpark, because at that time, there really was nothing else going on in the community. The Kentucky Colonel basketball franchise and the ABA had just left in the mid-70s, so there was no professional sports. Kentucky Kingdom wasn't built yet. So Cardinal Stadium became the in place to go. Redbird games became the place to go and be seen, and just huge crowds. As a matter of fact, in 1983, the team actually outdrew 5 major league franchises in total attendance, as the Redbird franchise drew over 1 million fans that year.
Wow. And you mentioned A. Ray Smith there, who was a guy who ended up hiring you, Mr. Greg Galiette. Let's talk about your love, not for only baseball, but for sports in general. So I know your uncle was a well-known sports announcer. Your dad played football at Syracuse. You were a great athlete as well. So all of this stuff, to me, it sounds like you were almost meant to. It was in your DNA to head in that direction, correct?
Sports became, unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 5 years old from Hodgkin's, and sports became my babysitter growing up as a child. It kept me busy, kept me company. I grew up many a day, I felt like laying on the floor just memorizing the sporting news. Back in that time, it was a large newspaper tabloid, and I would just go in there and memorize the box scores and the names and everything and just fantasize about how these players might look and play, because you just never knew. There wasn't much televised sports back then. But you mentioned that my uncle, Dick Galiette, he was the play-by-play voice of Yale football for 33 years. So I grew up going to some Yale football games, going to New Haven, Connecticut a lot in the summertime. And he actually then became one of the early anchors on ESPN Sports Center back in Bristol, Connecticut. I remember going to the trailers of the Bristol campus. Chris Berman, Tom Mees, Bob Lee, all the early pioneers of ESPN were there. And it was really neat just to be around that entire environment. But growing up as a child in Middletown, sports was my thing. And after I graduated from the University of Louisville, after graduating from Eastern High School, I went to work for Xerox on the corporate side, in corporate sales. And I quickly realized that this was going to be Groundhog Day every day. I just could not see myself selling memory typewriters and copiers the rest of my life.
That is not you, Greg.
And that's when baseball had just come back to town with all the buzz of the Redbirds. And I basically just became a nuisance to A. Ray Smith and just wore him down trying to get a job. And he basically took me in as an intern. And I gave up a pretty well-paying job at Xerox. And most of my family members and my friends and everybody that I was associated with at that time thought I was an idiot to give up such a good-paying job, to take such a pay cut, chasing a dream of something that I wouldn't be good at and I wouldn't last long in. Well, here 40 years later, I'm still there. And really, every day has been a blessing. It feels like I've never gone to work for those 40 years. And now I kind of view myself as a caretaker of the sport for the city of Louisville. And I want to make sure as I get ready to walk off, whenever that might be, into the sunset, that professional baseball is in a good position, a good footing in our community, so that I'll then be able to take my grandkids to professional baseball.
You said walk off into the sunset. Okay, so I'm going to take the obvious one there. Okay, it'll be a walk-off home run. What you have accomplished, it will be. Let's talk about that passion and how it did pay dividends. You know, you say some people thought you were an idiot, but sometimes crazy pays off, because you've done everything from being a ticket manager to assistant manager to a vice president to now president. So you've done it all. I would think there's some advantages for knowing every side of the organization. True?
It was really, these day and times when you go into professional sports, especially the minor league level, you usually don't get a chance to do what I did. And you mentioned all the different roles. I was even the public address announcer for 3 years until I was replaced by Paul Rogers. Paul came in and took over as I expanded and became the ticket manager and doing other things at the ballpark. But to have the opportunity to touch every facet of the operation, I think has been a blessing. As I've now become president of the Bats, there's really not anything I haven't done or seen. So any situation that usually pops up at a game or in a business sense, I feel like I can easily handle. So I think that well-versed education that I got, it was really interesting for me to have the opportunity to work around not only Dan Ulmer, but his son Gary Ulmer, and then to have a great promoter like Dale Owens kind of be my mentor growing up through the Redbirds organization, kind of taking me under his wing, teaching me all the things that he knew. He was such a great promoter. And so when I do a lot of stuff these days, I always try to do it with Dale in mind. What would Dale do in this situation? So it was a blessing for him to be in my life.
What a compliment. Yeah, I remember all of those early years, and I remember the excitement that surrounded the team when Slugger Field was built. That was a special, I think, 2000, is that correct?
2000, we actually went down there in 1998, picked out the site. We were actually looking at that site. Another site we were actually looking at was where the Kentucky Lottery is, down on Main and 10th Street. Or we just stay at Old Cardinal Stadium and refurbish that property. And that was one of the options we were looking at. But there was a strong push to try to bring something downtown, to especially the waterfront area, that would take and get people to come back downtown, especially at nighttime. Because back then, the old joke was you want to get out of downtown by 5 o'clock because you didn't want the tumbleweeds to hit you, because everybody was vacating downtown. So we proved quickly in those first couple of years when we opened our doors that if you do something right and do it well, that you can bring folks into the downtown community, especially young children with families, and which is obviously the core of our business. And who knows if without our success in 2010, the Yum Center may have never opened their doors and been constructed. They may have just stayed out at Freedom Hall and just renovated that, but we proved that if you do come downtown and do it right, then you can continue to grow the waterfront properties and the entire landscape of downtown.
So we touched upon A. Ray Smith and the Ulmer family, and we go on here with the history of now Diamond Baseball Holdings are the new owner and manager. It seems to me that their calling card is taking something like, which I think is genius. You take something like Slugger Field, which is a destination in itself, and you grow around it and expand the experience. Is that the way you see the way they operate?
They do. They're big into real estate development, so it'll be interesting as they now have Slugger Field as part of their portfolio, what their plans might be to maybe grow the property around us. I'm excited about some of the things that maybe are on the horizon for us as far as that's concerned. But I feel good as a administrator for this baseball club of the position that we're in with them. We're secure now. I couldn't say that maybe a year ago under our previous ownership group, but these guys really get it. They obviously operate other minor league teams. So the neat thing from a strength point for us is we can now lean on other operators around the country and trade best practices and things also to avoid as we each try to improve our operations. So it's really neat to have that camaraderie of fellow colleagues that you're all in it together. You're all part of one big family. So I think that's a true asset and a strength that we can deal from.
Let's talk a little bit about the relationship with the Cincinnati Reds and the ultimate mission of the Louisville Bats, because ultimately what a minor league team is designed to do is to support that major league team and help them win, which you do, which I would think for you as a president of the Bats is a bit of a dilemma, but you say not so much, because I'm saying, well, everyone loves a winner, but it's more than that, isn't it?
It is, and in Louisville, winning is important. Obviously, the University of Louisville experiences that, the tough times they've gone through, especially on the basketball side. You could see it in their attendance numbers. Lou City's a little bit different than us in that they basically had the same players from day one until the end of the season, and winning a title is really first and foremost with them. For us, winning is almost second or third on what we try to do. We're more of an entertainment option. Obviously, we play baseball, and we obviously played at a high level being professional baseball. And we've had a lot of big league stars that have passed through here, and I've also played against us down through the years. But we try to make sure that we provide a clean, safe environment, a fun atmosphere for families, especially to come and enjoy a night for 2.5, 3 hours just to get away from the real world and go back and experience something that maybe from their childhood they enjoyed so much, which was then playing baseball in a lot somewhere or playing catch with mom or dad in the yard. And I think we do that very well for 75 nights during the course of a season. Now, we do send a lot of guys back and forth to the Cincinnati Reds. I'd love to have a rest stop named after us on Interstate 71 for as many guys as we send back and forth all summer up and down between us and Cincinnati. But that's why we're here. And people will come to our games and sometime they'll see the Bats down 5 runs in the first inning and why haven't you taken the pitcher out yet? Well, maybe the Reds said that this starting pitcher has to throw 70, 80 pitches tonight. He's got to get his work in. They've got to be able to grade him. And until that happens, he's not coming out of the game. So unfortunately, sometimes our manager, Pat Kelly, has his hands tied by the Cincinnati Reds because player development is first and foremost.
Yeah, you have to sacrifice for the bigger vision.
Exactly.
I understand that. But it is interesting nonetheless. And that's, by the way, I want to thank the folks at Legato Financial Group. Gaining Interest is the name of the podcast. And if there is one thing that is very interesting, it's the creativity that is involved in minor league baseball. You are the master. I can honestly say this, and I thank you on behalf of our audience and myself personally. I've never had a bad time at a baseball game, never had a bad time at Slugger Field. It's always a memory, and thanks to you, my kids have those memories. My 2 boys have those memories. I know yours as well. So talk a little bit about the promotions and what goes into that, and some of maybe the more memorable ones, Greg.
Well, we're always kind of watching what's going on in the real world out there in our society, and is there some kind of spin or angle that we can play off of something maybe occurring in pop culture or popular news that we can poke fun at and have a good time with? So we're always looking around. And when you have to play 75 home games, well, that's a lot of opportunities to try to do things. So you got to be very creative, and it allows you some, I guess, elbow room to expand and do some crazy things. Probably the biggest, wildest thing we ever did was give away a home when I was with the Louisville Redbirds. And we did it. We actually gave away an actual home that was valued at that time over $200,000, and this is back in the 1990s. One of the promotions that kind of went sideways is when we first moved in to Louisville Slugger Field. We had just moved down from the Cardinal Stadium, which was obviously a very big and expansive piece of property. We brought our T-shirt gun with us from Cardinal Stadium, and unfortunately, my promotions director at that time forgot to recalibrate the gun itself. So opening night, we are shooting Louisville River Bats boxer briefs into the stands. And unfortunately, the gun is calibrated to shoot at Cardinal Stadium, which has, row upon row upon row of seats. Well, we are now shooting underwear out of the stadium. It's going over the roof, and it is landing on cars out in Main Street. So you just never know. Sometimes when you think of some creative things, they just don't go the way you want them to.
Wow. And there's some well-known acts that come into major and minor league ballparks, and you've had them all. What are some of the more guaranteed crowd pleasers?
Well, Red Panda is one of them, and we were her first baseball game ever. So I had to explain to her what an out was, what an inning is, what a run is.
And for folks who aren't familiar with Red Panda,
she's the young lady who rides the unicycle at, you'll see a lot of NBA or college basketball halftime shows. She'll be riding the unicycle at midcourt during halftime, and she'll be flipping basically the rice bowls up on her head and stacking them up on her head. And we actually had to build a wood platform for her to put on home plate so that she would have a surface to ride her unicycle on that she's familiar with, just like a hardwood basketball floor. We've had Quick Change, which is the husband and wife magic act that they continually are changing costume right in front of you. We've had Rubber Boy, who is actually a contortionist, he finished his act by folding himself up into a clear case that two of our staff members then carried him off the field, basically boxed up inside of a locked case. Of course, the famous Chicken, who we had numerous times at Cardinal Stadium and also performed for us at the Redbirds and at the Bats. And then, of course, the Superstars, which still perform for us right now, who are based out of Louisville, who have performed around the world, and Birdzirk, Dominic Latkowski, and he used to be our mascot, Billy Bird, with the old Redbirds, and then he grew that act and basically went on his own and went nationwide and has made a complete career for himself doing that.
Wow. Yeah, there's some memorable nights, and a lot of it is the entertainment side. As I said, there are many times that I'm looking away from the scoreboard, not realizing who's winning, because I'm having so much fun with what's going on around, whether it be the merry-go-round and the kids, or go grab a fried bologna sandwich, or the experience is what it's all about, isn't it, Greg?
It is part of the experience, and the cool thing now is with all the technology that's now been introduced into minor league sports, we've been able to expand what we do as far as visually with our video boards and with the audio effects, and really create the full experience now for our fans. We're able to sometimes when home runs are hit to dim the lights up and down and really create a wild atmosphere. And we certainly had a lot of fun this past August when we had the Savannah Bananas visit us for 3 days, and we had standing room only crowds all 3 days. It was unbelievable, especially for those 3 games. We had probably 60% of our crowd come in from out of town who had never been to Slugger Field, and to hear their positive comments about their experience at our ballpark. And it just made me realize that I think we as Louisvillians, we drive by the ballpark every day. We kind of take it for granted, and sometimes we don't appreciate how great we have it with such a beautiful facility that we're so blessed to play in.
And you are meant to be on Gaining Interest, this podcast, because you're interesting in that, Greg, you began as one of these hardcore, you'd mentioned when you were a kid, statistician and statistics and batting averages and ERAs and all that good stuff. And yet now you've evolved to where you go, I get it. Sports have evolved. It has to be more than just what's on the playing field. You understand that. What goes into, you mentioned, you said, okay, we look for things that are relevant or something that's happening in the news that will catch people. When something catches fire like the Bananas or whatever the case may be, the Philly Fanatic, what is it about that? What's magical about that? What is that?
It just takes fans back, I think, to a simpler time. That's the appeal of the Bananas, and that's probably one of their quotes and one of their mottos is fans first. They try to present baseball maybe in a way that we as fans would like to see it played as. And we try to kind of think about that in that aspect when we do Bats baseball. Last year we did Harry Potter night. We had a lot of fun with. We do Star Wars night every year. This
dogs
year, we have dogs that are allowed to come to our games. Right now, we're toying with how we can use Taylor Swift somehow next year. So we're working on that right now in our laboratory, trying to create a way that we can have
You'll make it happen.
Some kind of a night there and have some fun with. But it's really cool. And I'm very blessed to have some talented young people now that work underneath me in marketing for us and promotions that are always looking all the time throughout the landscape of America and really around the world of what's going on that maybe we can poke fun at or rally people around.
Personal memories for you. You have what I would consider the dream job, but you worked to get there. It wasn't always like the dream job. It was a battle. But now I think it's safe to say that you've arrived. And
a couple of my
some.
favorite memories, and they both come from my Redbird days. Dale and I booked Captain and Lady Dynamite, who basically blew themselves up before games. Now the explosion wouldn't go in; it would go out. They'd basically be in a coffin, and it would blow up on the field. So we brought them in on a Saturday night, and I was ticket manager at the time, and I'm sitting down in my ticket office down the left field line, and their act goes off, and we hear the explosions. The next thing I know, and you got to remember, this is back in the early 1990s, so there was really not a lot of technology. I was just one of the first clients on Ticketmaster, but before that, behind me was a complete seating chart of Cardinal Stadium with pins in where all our season ticket holder and different ticket packages were seated.
So you knew what was open
by various colors denoting what size package they had. And as I'm sitting there and I hear the explosion, all of a sudden I hear every pin behind me come out of the board and like an avalanche or a waterfall just fall to the floor. So it took me about 4 days to put those all back into the board properly where they needed to be. And then also while serving as ticket manager for the Redbirds, we were, I guess, blessed enough to have the Grateful Dead in concert. And I remember when they did their concert, while we waited, the Deadheads moved into town. And we were on a road trip, and they set up their camp right in front of my ticket office.
Oh, I bet that was interesting.
And they basically strung their clothesline for their clothes from their Volkswagen buses that they had to my ticket windows. And every morning when I came into work, my office reeked of marijuana from the night before from the various gatherings they had in the parking lot. So you just never knew what you were going to deal with. Plus, we were blessed to have President Bush visit us while we were at Cardinal Stadium for one of our games. So.
Pretty strong.
It's been a pretty interesting career.
You and I had a memory with the champ, with Muhammad.
Yeah.
Came down and we went down in the locker room. You were nice enough to host him, and I think that meant a lot to me personally because my love for the city of Louisville and the combination of because the Bats are of course an iconic organization, as is Muhammad. So as a person, and that combination, that was magical.
Muhammad would show up sometimes unannounced, and you remember this at Old Cardinal Stadium, and just pop up down the left field line and come up the steps.
Start doing magic.
And kids would just descend on him, and he'd start doing magic tricks for the kids. And he was unbelievable.
So, Greg, as president now, and you have this new holding company that seems to be pretty innovative, what do you see in the future for the Bats as you look forward? What do you see maybe that evolves and changes for baseball in general?
Well, I don't know about baseball, but this group is very interested in getting us back into the concert business. Now, obviously the Yum Center gets all the major acts, but I think Slugger Field provides itself as a really natural outdoor amphitheater. This group has some ties to concert promoters that they've worked with over the years. So I'm looking hopefully in the future of maybe having some concerts again at Cardinal Stadium. And we did Bob Dylan, we did Willie Nelson, we did some other concerts before the Yum Center was opened. And being that when we were at the Redbirds, we would do 2 or 3 concerts every year because we had AstroTurf, we had our own stage. It was very easy for us to do. Now, obviously on natural grass, you got to be very careful about how you treat your grass, but I'm hoping in the near future that we'll have some concerts that we'll be announcing and getting people back in the habit of coming to Slugger Field for other things besides baseball.
I'm sure a lot of folks who are watching, gaining interest here, are envious of your position because they go, wow, he meets all these celebrities and athletes, and it goes on and on. With that being said, what is your passion other than baseball? And I know that still exists; it exudes from you. So, other than baseball, what's on Greg's bucket list? What are some of the things you want to do?
I was a pretty avid golfer until 2005, when unfortunately my family was in a pretty tragic car wreck, which I lost my mother in, and it took me away from the game of golf for about 15 years. Then the pandemic came around, and I am so blessed to be married to basically the best wife of all time, who not only had to raise twins through me working 6 months out of the year, and actually for 3 years, never being at home when we ran the Louisville River Frogs hockey team. She went out and bought me a hitting net for my anniversary, a golf hitting net, moved her car out into the driveway, put the hitting net on where her car would be on her side of the garage. And that's now become my stress relief, where I come home a lot of times after games and I'll just jump in there and hit 20 or 30 balls. So it's really brought me back to the game of golf. So I think as my professional career starts to die down, I'm hoping to maybe play more and more golf. I'm so blessed that both my kids have taken up the game, so that allows me to spend time with them doing that. And my son and I share a passion for strength training, weightlifting. We do that occasionally together, but it's just nice to see him carry on some of the passions that I had as a youth. And I know that's how you and I connected back in our days when we were fitness trainers. So it's really neat just to watch your children kind of follow in the footsteps of some of the things you had done.
Greg, with your skill set and your background and extensive knowledge of baseball, I'm sure there's been other offers or people. There's obviously a special relationship for you with the city of Louisville, with the state of Kentucky. Talk a little bit about that. We've been able to keep you here, and I am so happy because I do believe that is the reason we are so healthy when it comes to minor league baseball and the Louisville Bats is the leadership, as the case may be in any business. True, as the case is with any business. You know, it all starts at the top. But why have you said, okay, my stakes are in the ground firmly. I'm not leaving. This is where I'm gonna raise my family.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm born and raised Middletown, Kentucky. So I grew up in Middletown when I had one stoplight, and we had to come down to St. Matthews to do our grocery shopping. There was nothing but farmland between Oxmoor and Middletown. As a matter of fact, Mark's Feed Store was a feed store. It was not a restaurant. It was an actual feed store. But just the opportunity to, and I almost left back in the mid-'90s. I was looking around. I had conversations with the Seattle Supersonics, which for a lot of people that don't remember was an NBA franchise. Also the Kansas City Chiefs, as I have a passion for also football. I tried playing football as a youth until I just basically broke too many bones and couldn't do it anymore. But then I started hearing rumors that this beautiful ballpark might be constructed in downtown Louisville. And as a native Louisvillian, I just really wanted to stick around and see that through and see what happened when it came up out of the ground. And I'm so glad I did. And to see the smiles each and every night when people leave our ballpark as they walk out, kids holding their mom and dad's hand or grandma and grandpa's hand. And a lot of times I'll go up to them and say, hey, did you have a great time? We had an awesome time. Who won? We have no idea. Who did we play? We don't know, but we had a great time. And that makes me feel so good, knowing that maybe I had a small hand in putting a smile on that person's face, or warming up their night, or creating a memory for them and their family to take with them as they go out into the real world. So, but again, the opportunity to work with so many interesting people in the state of Kentucky, whether it be our governors, our mayors that we've had down through the years. Again, as I said earlier, I really don't feel like I've ever worked a day in my life, the 40 years I've worked in professional sports.
Our current mayor, Mayor Greenberg, he always talks about quality of place, and you've certainly added to the quality of place and making this a better lifestyle for people who live in Louisville or decide to come to Louisville and move here and work. Okay, before I let you go, we've talked a little bit about options. There's University of Louisville, there's Lou City FC, there's Racing FC. There's all these different options of entertainment for people. If you could talk to people and say, okay, here's why you should buy season tickets to Louisville Bats. Now, I know the answer to this and how I feel, but I want to hear it from you. What do you tell them?
Well, first and foremost, every time you come to a game, you might see something you've never seen before at a baseball game, whether it take place on the field or maybe in the stands or something that we're doing. But we're going to provide you 2.5 hours of great entertainment. It's going to be at affordable prices. It's going to be in a clean environment. And it's a great way for people of all ages, whether it's little kids all the way up to grandma and grandpa, to share memories. And we're all in the building memories game is really what I think we are as far as our business and our business model. We want to create memories for everyone. So, and the thing that really warms me now is watching how our ballpark's being used for all kinds of other events besides baseball, whether it be charitable walks, runs, dances, wedding receptions. We have a beautiful stadium club now behind home plate where we'll be hosting all kinds of Christmas parties this off season. So it's just the various many ways that Louisville Slugger Field can be used and really become the focal point of downtown activities and events.
I appreciate your time, Greg, and I appreciate your tenure with the Bats and the fact that you've dedicated your life to making this a better place to live and a great experience at Slugger Field. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And we thank you so much for watching Gaining Interest. You know what we're all about, anything interesting, and certainly the Bats are that. This is an interesting story, and it continues. So get on out there to Slugger Field and catch a Bats game. I promise you, you and your entire family will have a blast. We'd like to thank Legato Financial Group for being the power behind Gaining Interest, and thank you for watching. Please share it with your friends.